Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome here to our new event. I'm Valentina Dolciotti, the editorial director of Diversity magazine, and I'm here only to introduce you our board advisor, Giorgio Siracusa, and our hosting today for this new fantastic event about ERG all around the world, and our guests from all around the world, and hope you enjoy and have a nice afternoon with us. So Giorgio, let's start. Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina, and also thank you for all the work that you've been doing to not only for this event, to give us the opportunity for this event, but also the magazine itself. If no one has seen the magazine yet, please go see Diversity magazine. It's in English, it's in Italian, and it is a really uniquely deep content for a magazine of these sorts worldwide. There's all kinds of subjects, all relating, of course, to our passion of diversity, but the depth in which the subjects are examined is really, really unique. So thank you, Valentina, for the work you do, and thank you for the introduction. What we're here for today is to talk about employee resource groups. So what they are not, we'll see in depth a case study, a very interesting case study. We will take a view that is global, but maybe a little bit more European. I think there's been more talk about these employee resource groups, probably in North America. We are seeing them now in Europe for a number of years, but they are really somewhat coming of age, and some companies are really making quick progress in the way that they are either founding them or expanding them. So we'll hear more about that. And then importantly, we'll examine what it takes to have, once you have an employee resource group or ERG, to make them grow and to make them prosper. And maybe also to understand what is their true potential, because it is my conviction, as you see it is for many panelists, that we haven't really fully maximized the potential of ERGs. So how are we going to do that, and what's the future of ERGs? So before we start, I'd like the panel to introduce itself. We have a great panel today of speakers, and I'd like to ask each of you to say something about what you do and say something about yourself. Let's start from Mara Zavagno. Mara.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Giorgio, for the introduction. Happy to be here today. Yeah, my name is Mara Zavagno. I'm Italian, but I'm based in Düsseldorf in Germany since almost 8 years with my family, who is quite international because my husband is originally from Thailand. So we have kind of a multiculturality at home. And my role actually is a diversity inclusion officer for Konecranes. That is a company headquartered in Finland. And I'm also responsible for talent engagement and reward. Now, I'm watching typically diversity inclusion from two corners. One is the company corner, where I'm driving the topic, and the other one also is the educational area, because I'm also member of the board of the International School of Düsseldorf. So I try to catch the aspect of diversity from the eyes of the young generations. That is a bit my history. As a company, we want to make sure that we promote the multicultural community where we operate in, and we create an environment that is truly inclusive and welcoming the differences. And that is a work that is not just as initiative, but should be part of the culture of the company. So, short introduction of myself, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today.
Mara, thank you. Vera Solomatina, would you please introduce yourself?
Giorgio, thank you so much. Hello, my name is Vera. I'm the Human Resources Director for SAP in Italy, Greece, and Cyprus. So I'm Russian, who is working in Italy for a German company, and now physically I'm in Zurich. So as you know, SAP is a global international big IT company, and we are doing a lot in the direction of diversity and inclusion. Me personally, I'm acting like an ambassador of the stream that is named Autism at Work, when we as a IT company placing on the professional specialties people with autism across the world. And also I am an active part of the Business Women Network, about which I would like to tell to you today. So thank you for the invitation.
Vera, thank you so much. We'll now go to Annette Pampel. Annette.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm responsible at Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners for I&D issues in the German BU. And I'm also the founder of the LGBT Rainbow Network, which was founded in 2014 as the first one of Coca-Cola in Europe. And I do have two roles, so to speak. The one is the official and my professional one, and of course, the voluntarily one as the head of the network. And what I do in my job is to span the bridge between our people in our company and organization and make diversity visible. On the other hand, to recognize the diversity of our customers and to make sure that our people just reflect how diverse our customers are and how we could deal with it. I'm looking forward to this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Annette. Thank you for being here. We love your virtual background.
Thanks.
It's simple, yet it makes a big statement. Luca Condosta. Luca, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Very happy to be here with you. Italian too, as many of you probably have realized from the accent, living in Zurich, and I work in ABB after 20 years in finance and now taking care of the corporate people development and the global leadership learning ecosystem that we just launched. And I'm also the founder and one of the leader of the global project on LGBTQ+ that we launched 1 year ago. So looking forward to this panel and looking forward also to your questions.
Great, Luca, thank you. Luca, you've been here before in one of these panels. And the intent, as you probably, I would have said it later, but the intent is to make this a bit of a talk show. So what we'll do, it might seem disorderly at times, but we'll try to bring it on track when it does, but to make it more exciting for those of you who have joined as an audience. And Luca, you've seen that it can work. I'd like now go to the Generali group, who is represented here by four members of the panel. And I'd like to ask to Doris Bizarro to introduce herself, but also to introduce the other members from Generali that will intervene today. Doris.
Thank you so much, Giorgio. And hello, everyone. It was very nice to be in this panel. I feel a little bit at home, and that makes things much easier. For those who don't know me, I am leading diversity and inclusion at Generali Group. And I have worked in this field for the last 7 years. So I have had the privilege to set up the function and to set up the governance and the strategy. And now we are working on the new strategy at group level. I've always been passionate about diversity and inclusion. As a matter of fact, diversity and inclusion is part of, I would say, my DNA. I have a family that, has one foot on one continent and the other foot on the other continent. And I have been on airplanes since I was 1 year old. So I think, first steps into diversity and inclusion were when I was very, very young. And I've always tried to build these bridges between people who are different in terms of languages, in terms of cultures, in terms of whatever differences. And this has become my job. I'm very happy that this is my job at the moment, and it has been for the last 7 years. Today, I am here with another 3 people, Tiziano Pestrin, Natalia Nicolescu, and Cesare Sofianopoulou, who are the co-founders of our group, employee resource group on LGBT inclusion. I would like to give them the floor to introduce themselves. So maybe we can start from Natalia.
Well, I think I can give first the voice to Tiziano, just to keep our order, and we can go back to me if that's okay for you, Doris.
Sure.
Thank you, Natalia, and good evening. My name is Tiziano Pestrin, and my pronouns are he and his. I'm Italian, and I work for Generali Deutschland in the compliance department in Munich. In this company, I'm also delegate of employees in the D&I Council, and in my spare time, I coordinate a program for the inclusion of talents with a diverse ability in workplace. I'm a passionate D&I activator, and I enjoy my free time in running the global We Proud ERG of Generali. I'm absolutely convinced that a cultural change towards an inclusive society is not just necessary, but possible, and now is the right moment to act, despite opposite signs, what is happening in some European countries, for instance. But I'm very happy today, very happy and honored to be with you. And now I hand over to you, Natalia.
Thank you, Tiziano, and hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here and an honor. My name is Natalia Nicolescu. Let's say by day, I'm a senior manager for customer experience and value proposition for Generali Group. And by morning, evening, afternoon, co-founder together with Tiziano and Cesare of We Proud, which is our first global LGBTQI plus allies ERG. I'm originally Romanian. I am living in Italy, and by the nature of my job, I also work with colleagues in over 30 markets globally. So there is a lot, let's say, of input that comes from my work to what we do, but also vice versa, from what we do to how we make more inclusive products. One of the key projects that I'm leading is differentiating value propositions, where inclusive services and experience is key. And I think I like the connection that Annette mentioned. We need to know better our customers and also understand how we can meet them at where they are now, not where we were in the past. So I'm happy to be here and give the voice to Cesare.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Doris and Tiziano. Hello, everybody. I'm Cesare Sofianopoulou from Italy. I work for Generali, where I am climate adjuster, and of course, every day a great supporter of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Together with Natalia and Tiziano, I'm one of the co-founder of the global ERG We Proud and the leader of We Proud Italia. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Very well. Thank you so much for the Generali Group to be here. Really looking forward. They're going to have the chance a bit later to talk about the start, the first year together of their employee resource group, a specific one, and it's actually only be 5 minutes to that. But let's finish up with our introduction. We only have 2 more people to go in our panel. Christine Anson Morgan. Christine.
Thank you, Giorgio. And hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many people here on the call. As Giorgio said, my name is Christine Anson Morgan. I'm an American who's been living and working in Germany for a long time. So greetings from sunny Frankfurt. I'm part of the D&I team at Hogan Lovells, one of the largest law firms in the world. We're one of the 10 largest firms, and we are. I'm happy to be part of a team of D&I professionals that works across the globe to bring our diversity goals to our people and to our clients. For us, diversity is the right thing to do. We think it's the right way to treat our people and our clients. But we also talk about the business case for diversity. There is a strong link between D&I and successful business, and I'm really thrilled to be part of the panel today. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Christine. We now go to Kristen Anderson. And what I'd like Kristen to do is introduce herself, but also maybe talk a little bit more about what you're doing now in the European Women on Boards initiative, which I think could be interesting for some of us and in the audience as well. Kristen.
Thank you, Giorgio, and thank you, Diversity Magazine. It's a pleasure to be invited to join the panel. It's not the first time I've joined a diversity event, and I really enjoy it because I always learn something in my experience with this kind of a fantastic group of experts on D&I. As Giorgio said, I'm Kristen. My pronouns are she, her. You can tell from my accent that I'm American, but I live in Italy, in Parma, and I'm a chemical engineer by training. So I kind of fell into this, as I say, D&I role that I have been working on in the past years by chance. I actually have been worked in the food industry my whole career, so many years in the US, but then I worked in Australia, then Munich, China, Singapore, and then I started with Barilla many years ago in a capacity as an R&D manager. But after some time, when Barilla started their D&I work in 2013, I joined a D&I board. And then I eventually was asked to take on Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, reporting to the CEO, Claudio Colzani. During that time, we spent a lot of energy on building ERGs around the world, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So enough about me. Just a really quick introduction on European Women on Boards, because I left Barilla to retire and spend more time volunteering in June of this year, and I joined the board of European Women on Boards. And many of the panelists are familiar with this organization. If you're not, you can always contact me on LinkedIn, and I'll put the link of European Women on Boards in the chat. But this is a nonprofit whose sole objective is to have more gender diversity and more diversity overall in decision making. As you know very well, there are not many women or diverse candidates on boards throughout Europe of companies, very low percentage. And so this organization is working on networking and training women and others to take more positions of a higher level. So we're really focused on the C-suite. The C-suite is of people that are usually reporting to the CEO and also board level. I don't know if you know this, but many board positions are not posted anywhere. They're via networking. And Mara knows as well because she attended our C-level school. We have a school that helps women network across Europe. So we're pan-European, and we're for senior women. And if anyone in your organization or you personally would like to get involved with European Women on Boards, please contact us. You can become a member. You can take one of our classes. And so I'll leave it there, but a pleasure to be here, and please look up European Women on Boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It is, in fact, a great initiative, and it really starts often from the boards. It doesn't mean that if you have more women on boards that you'll have also more women in the C-suite, but it surely seems to be important because at the end, the board will ask the right questions. The board can have an influence if it chooses to have. And that's why you don't need to just be on a board, right? But you need to learn how to be on a board to be a force for change. And I think what your project is doing, Kristen, is exactly going in that direction. So that at the end, some of the progress we've seen as far as board representation will also reflect in C-suite representation as well. So let's start with employee resource groups. What are they? What are they not? That could be a good way to start talking about it. Who among our brave panelists would like to venture into a definition of what is an employee resource group? Anybody wants to give it a shot, or should I call on someone?
Maybe George, I can give it a shot. I can start from what is not. That is something I like to to speak about also to our people. And I say from the beginning at DBB, I said let's make sure it's not just a nice group of people that are meeting with a rainbow flag just at the coffee machine. But being from finance, I always say to them, let's try to achieve something. And that's why I say there's a group of people with a common mission, a common type of vision of what they want to achieve. They can basically shake the organization to identify where the gap are in terms of, let's say, gender, in terms of race, minorities in general. And for me, it's really, I could say, a dynamite when the employee resource groups is born already with allies and people belonging to those minorities, because then you can also start influencing the organization from that perspective. So I always start explaining what is not, because some people, they say, yeah, it's a nice group of people that you can meet at the coffee machine, but they say, yeah, you don't need an ERG for that. I don't know if somebody else wants to compliment the guys on this one.
Any thoughts on what Luca said?
I could add a comment just to build on what Luca said. I think ERGs are also I would say the engine of an organization to make culture change, to make a safe space for people to bring their real self to work. And it's not just for people of a certain diversity, it's also for allies. So when we work together to have a place for people to share and be open about their real selves, their authentic selves, as we say, we know it's better for the employees. It generates belonging, more productivity and happiness. So I think it's an engine for opening up inclusion and making a safe space to be authentic.
If I may, Giorgio, I obviously subscribe to all the things that have been said. I would add one, I would say, characteristic of the people who join employee resource groups. They're all volunteers. So this is important, in my opinion, particularly in a corporate environment that is generally driven by high pressure tasks and where people struggle to find time to do something else or on top of what they are doing on an everyday basis. So the fact that they are volunteers is, in my opinion, very important and needs to be underlined.
Do you think the group is open, should always be open to people who are not necessarily part of the specific group for which the ERG is named for?
I do think so, because you have to be connected with whoever it is in your organization to push topics, to push visibility, and to push also solidarity with all of them. And this is just possible if you are open to everyone.
Does everybody have in the panel ERGs in their organization, if you belong to a corporation, or is there someone that does not yet have them? I think we pretty much all have ERGs if we are part of an organization. What I'd like to do at this point is to have Generali bring us for the next 10 minutes on their very, very interesting experience, very exciting as well, of a global ERG group. And Doris, I'll let you introduce it if you need to, and then we'll have everyone else talk about it. And I think it's a great way for us to kickstart a discussion that goes a bit deeper into ERGs in general. Doris, to you.
Thank you, Giorgio. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. It's a sort of showcase, and we're happy to take it. We're particularly happy because, as you can see from our backgrounds, we are actually celebrating our first year as an ERG, and obviously we are very happy about this birthday. We will tell you in a minute a bit more. As you can see with me today, as I said before, there are other people who are actively contributing to the ERG. So I'm simply going to say a few things about how it all started. and then I will give them the voice and I'll let them speak about the ERG itself. In our group, we started the LGBT inclusion journey in 2019, 2020. Actually, the strategy on LGBT was launched in 2020. And the strategy was the joint or the result of a joint effort between the governance. Obviously, we have a business governance on diversity and inclusion, and the employees. And I think that the active participation of champions, specifically on this topic, was the key success factor of the whole LGBT strategy, not just the ERG. Why? Because the strategy basically created a group plan which had 6 different actions. And all these actions, which translated into practical projects, were led by volunteers. So they contributed not just to creating the ERG, but also to the training and communications project, to working on HR policies, minimum standards for the whole group, to devising measurement items in order to understand, to measure the perception of inclusion in our groups. And they also work and are still working actively on the brand side and on the product side. And thanks, Annette, for mentioning that. Products is also the other side of the coin, and it's becoming more and more important when we talk about diversity and inclusion. So they actually were an active part of our LGBT strategy at group level. And obviously, among the different actions that we implemented at group level, we also implemented or created this was the first group ERG at group level. At that time, there were a few local ERGs, mainly working on gender, women, gender, but very few examples of LGBT networks, probably 1 or 2 at that time. And what we managed to do was to create actually a group ERG. And I think that the group, the ERG, has done a fantastic work over the last year in terms of creating that safe space where the people who were invisible have become visible. And they have started to talk about, their lives. So I am particularly proud of We Proud. That's how we called it. And I would like, I think that the best people to talk about We Proud are the ones who are moderating it every day. They are actually doing the work of inspiring the people, of sharing the experiences, of raising that awareness, but also, I would say, educating in some cases. Because what we hear from our employees is that they learn new things they didn't know anything about. So it's also about, informing and educating people on LGBT-related topics and on inclusion topics at large. So I will give the floor again to my partners in crime here, and I will start with Tiziano, correct?
Thank you very much, Doris. Thank you also for your introduction, and good afternoon again, everybody. I was not alone. I was with Natalia Nicolescu from head office and Cesare Sofianopoulos from Generali Italia when we decided to start this experience, the experience of creating and managing We Proud, the Generali's first global ERG. And for us, as mentioned and as clear from our background, this month is even more important because last 20th of October, We Proud, our baby, had its first birthday. We launched our employee resource group on 20 10-20-20. Also, the combination of numbers was magic. And we are happy to have reached at the moment 846 members. Generally considered as more or less 72,000 employees around the world. That means almost 1%, which is not that bad. Month after month, shared in all the world, with a big number in Italy, followed by Czech Republic, France, Germany, and Spain. And this year we have run 7 events. Last one on Tuesday. We shared the 32 stories of We Proud members across the globe. And we decided to create We Proud because we wanted a network for our people, independent, where LGBTQI colleagues and allies can feel at home, could have a secure reference in our group, a safe harbor, something that we hadn't before. Of course, we have dreaming about this. Fresh employed colleagues of new generation ask for such a contact. Someone in particular from old generation thought as impossible to have it in our group. But surprisingly, we were happy to realize that we could also count for this journey on some very passionate senior leaders that supported us in our early stage. I must remember the CEO of Thailand, Kenny, a wonderful ally and actually the inventor of our ERG name, We Proud, or Christian, the Chief Insurance Officer of Switzerland, very engaged from his personal story, or the head of communication in Generali France, Elise. They were doing their own revolution and joined forces with us to help open the door of our organization. LGBTQI+ started to be an increasingly used acronym, together, of course, with ERG, both acronyms unknown to most people. But we're proud, we can even say, as it was launched at the end of October, was a pandemic hit itself, and it came into activity when people all over the world were confined between the walls of their homes. Perhaps they were disconnected from their local groups and friends. But through We Proud, we connected them with a bigger world of supportive colleagues that shared similar stories. Many found their own colleagues from the local company and connected through the platform. The platform for us is particularly important because we have created, we're still using our global e-learning platform to connect everybody. And this is in a portion of this platform, we have built our space, our safe harbor. I can remember even now when we announced the kickoff event, we received so many adhesions that the MS team couldn't support at that time. I must say that it was the right time with the right people, the necessary top support. Me, myself, Natalia Nicolescu, we were already activators in the global D&I community of practice. And we share the same passion, commitment, and also fun. So that was the best chemistry to get started. It was so, Natalia.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, maybe I take a step back and I share to the guests today how we actually met, because myself and Tiziano, we actually connected by developing together an event that was tackling at the time the topic of non-binary, in particularly the neurodiversity and intersex. So for the diversity and inclusion community where we were activating at the time, we thought to try something different and to bring testimonials of real experiences. I have to say we didn't know how this will play out, how it will be accepted. So it was really powerful. I remember at that time, we had about 100 people connected in the Teams call. Several colleagues spoke up. They have been sending us messages about their experience with intersex friends, family. And I think this is when we really clicked on this approach, and we really understood that the colleagues in general were hungry to connect at a more personal level, hear more voices, make their voices heard. So after the main kickoff event for We Proud in October last year, We Proud Stories, which at the beginning was called We Proud Getting to Know, was born as the main event format. Of course, Tiziano mentioned to join the ERG, we created the platform that works like a forum where colleagues can join in and become We Proud people. From an anonymous survey conducted at the beginning, we know that out of the 846 members, about 50% are allies, as this was commented before. And what we try to do with We Proud Stories was to have a no corporate, no PowerPoint format, really differentiate and focus on the human aspect. We really work with the storytellers so that they feel comfortable to share what is sometimes really personal, moving experiences, traumatic sometimes. And this has been fantastic because there are a lot of lessons, insights, and best practices at once that can be learned by just listening. And the good news is what we observe is that these stories have also had the power to inspire. So we had situations where even spontaneously on the event, we had colleagues that disclosed their own stories. We had even 4 CEOs that connected spontaneously, and as well various senior leaders. So everyone really feels that they are on the same page. And within the 32 stories that we shared and discussed, we commented local struggles, gay and lesbian marriage, what makes a good ally, restrictive countries. This week, actually, our We Proud Stories event was focused on the letter T from transgender, which is a topic that we don't talk enough within the corporate environment. So we featured an impressive story of Enrica, who's a mother helping her daughter through a painful transition, and Anna Maria, a colleague from our consultancy partner that actually lived her transition with Generali, working with us for a long-term project. And we really know that this will be for us a challenge for the next normal, when people will maybe not be so much at home. We are here also to learn from the more experienced practitioners how to balance the online and offline. But what we saw is that the good thing is that the stories, besides connecting people globally and locally during the pandemic, it really they inspire the creation of local We Proud groups. And this is for us important for taking We Proud to the next levels. But to speak about local groups, I'll let Cesare tell you more, because he's actually one of the leaders of the Italian We Proud. So I want to pass the ball to him to explain you the connection.
Thank you, Natalia, and hello to all of you. It's also a pleasure for me to be here in a dual role, as said before, as the co-founder of the Global We Proud and as leader of the local Italian ERG. Being part of the global picture is very important, but of course, we don't want to forget the local picture. Our wish is also to connect We Proud members in many languages, but so far our interactions were mostly in English, and this can be a barrier for some. Having the possibility to connect locally gives additional strength, a sense of community, and this is what we really want. So far in Italy, about 40 people have joined our local ERG. The Italian group was born in December 2020, and it is now organized in 4 teams within which we develop projects to grow together and which are specialized in the 4 areas that we consider crucial. So training, support, legislation, and culture. We even had some of the members from the local We Proud sharing their stories on the global platform. At the moment, there is also a local We Proud in Germany, in France, Germany, in which Tiziano is a participant, Thailand, though not formalized as We Proud, and the Philippines. Greece and Portugal are also considering forming their own groups. So it's important for us to give them the right support in the future. As with people coming back from the lockdown, we would like to make a stronger connection with in-presence meetings and events. Hence, we are working on a stronger defined governance with a sort of a franchise model, if you may, a startup kit for the local We Proud ERGs to apply so they can get up to speed. And so this is our plan for the next year, as well as working more with internal activators and the NI network to support us in the production of content, events, and pushing topics through communication departments in the various organizations. Of course, we are defining this model together with Doris and her team, so we can properly leverage all company platform. Thank you again, Giorgio. I give you the mic back.
Thank you. I have a question for all of you generally, which is if you think about us meeting again next year around the same time, how would you define success versus a year before, which is now? So in other words, how do you see yourselves evolving as a ERG? And when would you call it a success? If it's a year, maybe you can also do 2 years if you wish. But what do you call success from now on?
Who would like to go first? Maybe I can say what I think. It's actually a very good question, Giorgio, because while we are speaking, we are also finalizing the strategy for the next 3 years. And one of, let's say, one open issue is still to understand how you measure, right, the growth of the ERGs at the end of the day. I would say that there are different qualitative and quantitative ways to do that. But for me, what I would say that success comes from the number of people that actually reach out for our support because they have never come out of the closet or because they are transitioning. And they feel free to come to the HR person or to the We Proud representative, but basically to bring their stories into the open. And that would mean that we are creating a real inclusion environment. So that's one important KPI for me. And I would say that it's actually working. It's starting to work because we are having quite a few cases of people that have come up, to say that they are transitioning or that they have special needs or that they simply want to make it, to talk freely about it to their managers, for instance. So that for me, it's an important, I would say, indicator that the company environment and culture and climate is becoming more inclusive. I don't know about Tiziano or the other.
Maybe I can.
Yeah, I would like probably to say something about the reward. You talk about success, Giorgio, but I would like to say what is reward for us as co-founders. When we run a meeting and at the end we receive emails from colleagues, unknown colleagues from around the world saying thank you. Thank you for bringing this topic. Thank you for building a different society. This, in my opinion, non-prize, because you realize that you are doing the right thing and you are rewarded, because preparing events, putting together people is done up to your day, to your activity, and this is the direct reward. For me, success.
Maybe I can add on your point, Tiziano. I completely agree with the reward part. Maybe for me, success is, and I know it's going to sound strange, but it's when we're proud is not going to need us, because it's going to be a self-sustaining machine. So actually, a few days ago, a colleague wrote me on LinkedIn, Natalia, I'm turning 40, and I realized I need to do something with my life, how I can join with Proud, which was really rewarding. I loved it. But my dream would be that they would know how to join. And then, if one of us is, let's say, not pushing, the We Proud ERG is growing and, can support new countries to join in a self-sustainable manner. So I'd say this is the challenge I see, but the success that would be envisaged in the next years. More members, but also a community of activators that take initiative and really are proud and brave to find their own ways to engage.
I have an observation and maybe a question, which is one. You said you have about half of the participants who are allies. So
Yes.
This is significant also for LGBTQ ERGs. It would be almost unique if this were a gender ERG. I don't think I've ever seen a women's ERG with half the participants being men. And also it would be the case for ethnic groups or race-based ERGs. It would be very unusual. For LGBTQ, it's true that the percentage of allies can be significant, but 50% is quite high. Any thoughts about what you see allies are taking out of the, there's obviously a huge attraction to be part of We Proud. So one, what are the allies looking for that they are receiving? And two, do you see this percentage shifting in the future?
Maybe I can add one input from a conversation we had with colleagues in Greece. In one of our sessions, they were considering to, as Cesare mentioned, to create a We Proud group in Greece. And they said, of course, this group will have formally just allies because there is no culture of coming out. So let's say this is half of the answer in terms of, is this percentage possibly shifting in the future? I would think yes. The second part is that there is, let's say, an interest in learning. And we've seen this also with senior leaders. So allies take a lot of learning. Maybe our challenge for the future is that they become really active allies and they take this forward to their teams. But however, let's say senior managers that are part of We Proud are already having this invisible, more inclusive badge, so they attract better talent and they get value from learning. But we think it's now for us a chance to have a larger platform for change. And of course, if Doris, Tiziano, Cesare, you want to integrate.
Yeah, I think in our community, we have, as we have mentioned, 50% allies. And because we address also at parents, parents are very, very sensitive to topics as LGBTQI. Having a son transgender or how to manage a gay son. So they are quite sensitive for that. And in this respect, I can understand the active participation of allies in our group.
There is also another. Sorry, Cesare, go ahead.
Oh. I just want to say that I agree with Tiziano because a good example is our local ERG where we can find the 60% of members allies and mainly are parents for the same reason, I think, because they have to manage the coming out of their children. So it's a new team, a new very important team that we have to develop, and is very strong inside families.
Absolutely. Okay,
Giorgio,
so
may I just add one comment on this?
Of course.
Because this is quite curious. Many people, or I don't know how many, but quite a few people wanted to join We Proud because they couldn't believe that LGBT was still an issue today in the company. So they are and many of these are like the white, straight men. You know, they were coming to me. I had a few that came up to me and they said, are we still talking about this? You know, it's not an issue anymore. And I said, well, if you don't think it's an issue, go and join, you know, this community, and you know, you can see yourself if it is an issue or not. So sometimes it comes, you have people that can't believe that diversity and inclusion, or are skeptical about the idea that diversity and inclusion is an issue. So they join for this reason. They become allies for this reason.
Thank you. Let's go now to the broader audience, and I'd like maybe Mara, maybe if you can give your perspective on this, Mara Zavagno, on what are the conditions to create an ERG. So in other words, what are the conditions you need to create if you're a HR leader, or if you're a line leader, an executive, that you want to make sure exist to get an ERG off in the right way, to start it off in the right way?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Giorgio. We have been starting quite recently with the ERG, actually after the webinar that we had with you and Kristen, where we were inspired from the ideas to have those groups working together and helping to advance a certain topic related to diversity and inclusion. And actually, we decided to support and constitute the ERG groups in a very structured way. So we created a formal policy related to this topic, with the idea to start initially globally. So the ERGs that we have currently in the company, which are 4, are all on a global perspective. And the reason why start globally was actually to make sure that we were able to provide them the tools to be successful, the enablement for the ERGs. So in other words, making sure that we created those alliances within the organization where the group can create clear targets, have leadership support in reaching those kind of objectives as a team that we can measure and contribute to the organization, but also having the opportunity to learn from each other. So in my view, the sponsorship from the top and the enablement tools are very important to make sure that the ERG are successful, and feel, which is important, that they are not a community from the coffee machine, but really a community that can make a difference. So, and to conclude on this topic, maybe one element that sometimes we don't fully consider is a great enablement also for talents within the organization. They have the opportunity to be more visible. They have the opportunity even to take lead on certain project, to present in C-suite, in important forums within the organization. Is a platform where people can learn a lot from each other. So there are a lot of benefits that a company can promote toward the utilization of the ERG. That was my experience, and that's the reason why, again, we took the topic in a very structured way: policy, goals, opportunities, and tools to make sure that they can measure their success, and sponsorship from the top that can make them, can give them the time and the opportunity to succeed.
Kristen, when you arrived at Barilla, it would be interesting to have your point of view about where the ERGs were, if any, and how did you work to create the conditions for them to flourish?
Yeah, good question, Giorgio. I think I can add on a lot of what Mara said are definitely the conditions you need. And when I joined, as I mentioned, and when I started on the D&I board, we didn't have any ERGs. So they started in 2015. Barilla started encouraging employees to form them and giving them the kind of guidance and the tools to form one, and the governance, you know, the approval, etc., the sponsorship. So as Mara said, you need executive sponsorship. You need it to be part of the culture. And from 2015 until I left in earlier this year, went from 0 to more than 1,300 employees. Now Barilla has 8,000 employees, so it's a pretty high percentage. Also, ERGs have been formed by the employees in the factories, in the sales force. You can do that. So I think, again, it's got to be a strong commitment, but the ERGs have to be recognized and rewarded. And not just as I think a lot of people said, you know, coffee machine chit chat. I mean, you know, to encourage employees to form ERGs in, for example, Russia, we have a Voce ERG in Turkey. That to me was a surprise when the employees said and Voce is our We Proud, is Barilla's We Proud, is really to have the senior leaders be the sponsor for that, to do a lot of education in local language, why ERGs are important for the company, for the business, for the local business, and for employees in general. So our CEO, when he travels, and even virtually, always has a breakfast or a lunch with the ERGs, and not just the leaders and not just HR, but the ERG leaders and people in the ERGs. Town halls, it's always presented the ERG. When we have the D&I board, the ERGs come in and present. And to Mara's point, it gives a lot of opportunity for leadership to see these leaders and talents that maybe have not been identified, making sure the executive sponsors are always speaking about the ERGs. And then even to the point of when someone gets promoted, in the announcement it says this person is or was an ERG leader. So try to make sure that it's encouraged in all the aspects. The last point I would say is local language. I think that, you know, as we said, there's always a challenge about, you know, having a global ERG like We Proud or Voce. Voce has events in English for the leaders, but then they have local chapters that are in the local language. And for smaller countries, like I give an example of Brazil, in Barilla Brazil, it's only 40 people. We had developed a hybrid model. So in that country, they can form their own ERG. They don't have to pick one affinity because, again, you take like for LGBT inclusion plus allies, you would have 40 total employees to select from. It would be a very small ERG. So in this hybrid model, they can form an ERG like Rispetto or whatever they want to name the ERG. And then they can change the focus area year to year. So depending on the country culture, like Inclusivo, because we like the Italian name, Inclusivo in Canada focused on the cultural elements of the latest immigrants into Canada. Whereas Brazil, they focused on and continue to focus on LGBT inclusion. In Greece, it's about refugees, integration of refugees and people with different abilities, and changing it year to year. But still have to have actions, needs to have a budget, sponsorship, those elements are the same, but ERGs need to basically be able to communicate in local language to really expand them. So
thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Now, before I ask further comments on this, I'd just like to call the attention to the audience to a very lively meeting chat window that I think you should have open on your right. There are comments from both the panelists, but also from many of you in the audience about what we're talking about, including with your own contributions from your experiences. So make sure you have the chat window partially open at the side, because you're going to get a lot of benefit from it. On the subject of the conditions, there is a specific question, which is, what is the involvement of the top management? So does the C-suite person need to be involved? And I think the answer is probably yes. But what is the best way to involve the leader, taking into account that there might be or might be not as passionate about these matters as the people in this panel, right? So what is, in your experience, the best way to involve the senior management into the formation, but also into the running of an ERG? Maybe, I don't know if Christine or Annette or Vera want to contribute to this one, if you've seen it happen.
Yeah, sure, Giorgio, thank you. That's a very good point, and every ERG will need the support of a senior leader. As Kristen and the others have said, it's essential. Assuming that the ERG is formed and sponsored by the organization, there are also ERGs that form from the bottom up, kind of a grassroots movement. That also happens in some organizations, but we're talking about a different model here. So this is how Hogan Lovells has also approached most of its ERGs. They've been, sponsored or organized by the firm. And one easy way to start with, a senior leader who's been asked to sponsor an ERG is to have the communication come, from that person. We're a global law firm, and our Pride Plus network is also, a global network, and we have a global sponsor from our management board, and major communications about Idaho Debate Day or about other landmarks or about certain events can come directly from the email address, from the from line of the senior manager. That often helps garner some attention for the message. We also have a regional structure for our Pride Plus network, and according to the event or the topic at hand, we'll also ask for them to communicate about certain events or anniversary days.
Anybody would like to build on the comments?
It's Vera. Maybe I would like to add a few words about involvement of C leaders in the DNY agenda. So for SAP, it's very common because, honestly saying, we're working with the employee groups a very long period of time. And for us, all this diversity and inclusion agenda is a part of our DNI. So most of our business leaders, they are also included in DNI topics. And I see that some of them are driving the agenda with no interaction and no special notification from HR or from employees. So I know that some business leaders within my market unit, for example, they are thinking upfront how to increase the amount of different people into our business network, how to increase amount of women, for example, on the management position. So it's not that I tell about this. So they are thinking about this themselves. And so this is very important for the organizations who maybe are starting this journey to mention that this need to not only be a part of a strategy, but also this need to be a part of the thinking of the SE leaders. So please think about this influence to your business leaders and to your strategy. So that's all from my side.
Thank you. Annette, did you have a comment from your side and your experience?
Well, actually, we are the Rainbow Network was one of the grassroots ERGs, and we just started with not much support, so it was not that easy in the beginning, since some people did not understand why this could be important. As an organization, I'm speaking about Coca-Cola Europe Pacific Partners, which is a bottler. And when we started, we were just the German business unit. So there was not the understanding of how important that could be to the organization and the people working for us. But when we became European in 2017, I think, and now we're Europe Pacific. It became a totally different focus because our executive team, the entire organization is pushing it, and it's now in our business plans, all the diversity and inclusion issues, not only LGBT, but also heritage, disability, and gender, of course. As we are bottlers, we are not the company, the brand of Coca-Cola. We just are responsible for selling and producing the product. The people just were not as open to diversity, especially in Germany. I would say Germany is a little bit behind all the diversity discourses, so it was not easy to get involved within this talk, I would say. So it was not easy, but we made a lot of progress, and since we are now a little more international, it changes a lot. Even there are more people working together. There is a necessity of being aware of it. And plus, we are in the beverage industries. We do have a really small share of females, and we have to raise this share. So there are lots of issues that we have to work on, and I do think it's a travel or a journey because being open to everything concerning diversity and inclusion means that people become aware. And this is the main thing, to have visibility of these groups, that they are among us, and that we make them belong and make them feeling involved in this company. That's the most important thing for me.
Thank you, Annette. And I see a hand raised from Kristen. Kristen?
I just wanted to add on a point that Vera made, and also that Annette just added on to about the journey. It's also a personal journey for leaders. So one of our external advisors said to us at the very beginning, don't expect your senior leaders to just say, I'm comfortable speaking about this. I'll go ahead and be an executive sponsor. Many times you need to ask them, can you be the executive sponsor of this ERG? And they might say, I don't know what my role is. So it takes education, but they can be the most outstanding vocal leaders. So our advisor, Patricia Bellinger, once said, you have to make them, it's an English term, fake it until they feel it. So they have to be speaking about it until they really start integrating into themselves, then they can speak about it freely. But it's not going to come just right away. So don't always pick for your ERG the person that's already speaking about D&I. Pick someone maybe that isn't, who has a very big influence at the company, but take time to educate them and get them, fake it till they feel, to get on board. So I think that.
Kristen, this is very important, I think. And the HR role sometimes is misguided because it's seen as the organizer of the ERG, it's seen as the natural ally of the ERG, and that's fine. But actually, the HR role could be much more impactful if instead of, because it's a given that HR should support the ERG, so it's not a big deal. We should do that as HR. On the other hand, it is far more effective if we get the executives as HR, we train the executives, we communicate, we coach them into how to be sponsors, because by definition, the executives are outstanding sponsors if they are authentic, right? So how do you make them authentic? And it goes through education and learning. I'd like to go, I know there are hands raised and points made. Again, in the chat, there are some great stuff, but I need to ask you a totally different question to move on. Otherwise, we'll run out of time. And it's the following. There are moments in which an ERG has been around for a while and people start asking questions, what are we really doing here? We've achieved maybe the low-hanging fruit, the key things we needed to do at the beginning. We see some of the management even coming to pride. We see some of the, we see executives more, they learned, we've taken actions, but they have a bit of there's a moment of maybe crisis, or maybe a moment in which the ERG looks at their mission and say, maybe we have to reconfigure it. we configure ourselves. Any comments about, or any experiences you've had in this, and what would you say to someone who's going through this in their organization?
Maybe Giorgio, I can take this one because we have experienced a little bit this in certain market, and first of all, I would say the structure that Mara was mentioning helps a lot also in our case, because we have a kind of a guidelines which define how do you find your budget, how do you find your people, how do you motivate people to stay with you, and also we have a kind of a quick checklist and toolkit which gives basically the people that are managing the ERG, as we say, that are volunteering, basically, a kind of easy pre-cooked material that they can use plug and play. So, for example, do you have a mission? Do you have a form to recruit your member? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have this? Do you have that? But then I think, and that's probably what also the colleagues from Generali were pointing before, I still struggle to believe, that the ERG can live without someone behind the scene organizing the whole framework, because of course they are volunteering, so therefore people will come and go. So there is a need still to create a sense of urgency, but then there is also a need, I would say, to when you are in this phase of stabilization where you think that everything is done, I think it's fair, for example, to sit and say, okay, let's see what have we achieved for sure, and let's see what are the gaps that we still have to close. Because, for example, we are doing something also in ABB. We had this global view of the RNG, and every market. We opened one also in Poland, which is still controversial, but because we also wanted to give a strong sign to the employees. And then we say, now what do we do after 1 year? 800 people mobilized, 3.5 thousand people mobilized during Pride. So now what? And then, I said, let's call a kind of I would say council of all the RNG to say, what have you really done? Have you changed the policy on parental leave? Have you changed the policy on your supplier? Have you changed the policy on the recruitment? Do your HRBP know that when they recruit the people, they should tell them, in case you want, this is where you can go to? I think the homework is a long list, and therefore there is always something to do. I think we have to approach the topic with the humbleness to say, let's see what we really have achieved. And probably, the next step will be that some ERG will come together, because I always say I wanted to elevate the topic of LGBTQ plus in ABB until it becomes a non-topic. And when it becomes a non-topic, I'm happy to merge LGBTQ plus together with, for example, the Black people or with Spanish or whatever, to bring the support, because then it becomes really an inclusion type of mindset. That doesn't matter if you talk about LGBTQ plus, if you talk about race, minority, everybody can buy in and can find something for them.
Do you all agree? I just wanted to ask, I know, Mara, you have I'll get to you because you have the raised hand, but do you all agree that the final objective of an ERG is to disappear because the issue is resolved? Because it's the second time that I'm hearing this in this panel, that if you want, in one time there won't be a need for the ERG. Or is this...
I didn't say disappear, Giorgio. I say evolved, which means that potentially, it's like when you focus on men and women, and then we can say we don't talk about women anymore because it would be even embarrassing to focus on that. But then we focus on what's next and what the women can bring to the table to help LGBT community to succeed. And then same on Black people. So I didn't mention to disappear, just to clarify.
And Giorgio, I also think that ERGs can be leveraged for other areas too, because it's all about employee engagement. So, the idea is maybe ERGs for sustainability, ERGs. So it can evolve as long as they have a very clear governance. But I would love to see the day where every diversity was already accepted. You wouldn't need the groups, but I can't foresee that in my lifetime. But it would be nice aspiration.
Yeah, and I agree, and I will also speak about like Luca and Kristen said about evolution of the ERG. They are a strong element of engagement within the organization, of course, even utilized eventually in a crisis period, not always in the good time, but they are a tool of innovation by definition. People who are in the ERG mature a certain mindset. And I think that this is very important if you have a good structure within the organization, a good policy or way of working for the ERG. These allow the evolution. You can maybe reach an objective with the one specific ERG group, but this is creating the opportunities for others, a new target that you can provide, because in any case, in a normal plan do check out, you execute, then you make a check where you are, and you use the competencies that you have developed. And the ERG are developing specific competencies to enable transformation within the company. So I will see always an evolution on that.
Any other contribution to this particular point?
Yes, I would like to add something. I think it's important, even if you start as a grassroots group, that it is all about visibility, all about recognition within the company. And later on, I do like the term evolution, because this says exactly what is supposed to happen. It's important that you just widen your view and the perspective. So when we are able to involve all the people of our organization, we can now focus on, and this is what we do right now, is to span the bridge from I would say, the soft skills of the people working for us, but then to widen the perspective to our customers, to how different are the people we are working together with, and what could we do with the products in our interaction, in our relationships, like what do we do and how could we go on further on this? So span the bridge from internal to external actions.
The crisis that we've seen with COVID is not the only crisis an organization can sustain, of course. What is the role of the ERG when the organization is going through a crisis, whether if it's own making, the business is not good, there is a restructuring, a downsizing, or there is something like COVID going on? What have you seen can be the best role of an ERG to play in these situations?
Well, if I may say something, as we had quite a lot of dynamic during the last years. Actually, we started our ERG during the COVID crisis, and we thought that was exactly the right time to start with the ERG in this time, even to offer, or let me say in this way, leveraging our new way of working to be on remote, and offering a platform of stay connected for the people that has been very helpful even in the mental well-being of many cases, but also serving as a source also to collect sometimes information from the field that maybe sometimes you don't have so spontaneously, and even be more helpful in supporting the organization. That's from a global perspective. From a local perspective, I need to say even more effective, because they are close to the people, and they are in some way trusted from the people, because like Luca said in the chat, they are not hierarchical driven, and that is making their approach much more confident and accepted by the organization. So that has been my learning and continue to be my learning, having this group of people, the ERGs within the organization, in good but in bad time, or in difficult times, or in change times that are pretty much common currently within the organizations.
Kristen, you have your hand up.
If I can just add on to what Mara said, when the CEO shared this with me at the end of last year, when they had his first line meeting with the regional presidents, and they go around saying, what's the situation with COVID, et cetera. He shared with me that every regional president said there was two things that have enabled the employees and business to progress last year. And one was smart working, which is our virtual working, started many years ago. And the second was ERGs, for exactly what Mara said. But what we did is we used the ERGs, which are fairly well established in every country, to be kind of focus groups. What are the employees challenged with in that specific country? And then take that feedback and give it to HR, who used it to design the right programs in Russia or in Turkey, which had sometimes different needs. And that saved time. HR didn't need to go out and have focus groups. And the second thing is to provide the safe space we've all discussed. So if I'm really struggling and I have some real issues, I'm probably more comfortable telling my ERG participants, teammates, colleagues than I am to tell my boss sometimes, which is also a problem. But in general, it can be the easier safe space. That's what we found.
And also, colleagues, I would like to say here that the great ideas in SAP about the mindfulness and about the mental health during the COVID situation were given by our employees groups. So one of the best ideas is Mental Health Day that we're celebrating, that we have already celebrated this year, and we are planning this for the next year. So the day when nobody is working in the company, except people who are dealing with, technical things who need to be done every minute. So all the people in the company, they are thinking about their mental health, doing some spa, some interacting with their families, friends, etc. Nobody is working. And also all the activities that are connected with the parents, work-life balance, about kids' interaction during COVID. Also, a lot of ideas were given by our employees.
You know, one thing also that was pretty clear is how many of us did not know how COVID was impacted specific employee populations. For example, women ERGs really helped fairly early in the pandemic to show that there was an unequal impact of COVID, and especially working from home, on women versus men, and that helped certain companies that wanted to try to balance what was going on to actually take action. And I don't think without the ERGs, the women ERGs, we would have been able to fully realize it, or at least to realize it in time to do something about it. The same thing goes for disability ERGs. And now the question is, as offices open again and we go to a hybrid workplace, the question is, how can ERGs really help to get to the best combination of work from home and office versus what we had before? One last point that I wanted to ask you was that how to avoid competition among ERGs representing different groups of the population. Have you ever observed that? And have you been able to instead change it into a more constructive form of cooperation? If you haven't seen it, then it's great. I know that it happens quite a bit in North America.
It can happen. Yeah, it can happen, Giorgio. Maybe this is Luca. Yeah. And I'm then thinking, how can you translate some business practices also to the RNG? So, for example, it can be sometimes that the ego prevails to the topic. Maybe one technique, if you have abundance of people in the RNG, is to rotate the leadership every year, so that we avoid that the ERG becomes my baby, and then people say, okay, this is email coming from this person, so magnify the ego. But for example, something we are planning in ABB is really to give a chance to all the leaders in the ERG every year to rotate, so that we say, okay, on one side you get exposure, but then on the other side we give the possibility, to join certain meeting, to be visible to the management. And this is probably the reward we are giving back when it comes to their voluntary job, like someone said. So we found this technique. I don't know if it's the best one. I don't know if it's, we are also quite new in the RNG journey, but I think it's potentially one possible solution to avoid that the ego sometimes prevails on the content.
Indeed. Thank you, Luca.
Just to add a one small comment, I think also Barilla organized ERG sharing sessions of the leaders so that they could share amongst themselves, and when other ERGs take their ideas then there's also that level of recognition. So to try to push an environment of collaboration versus competition, and then intersectionality. You know, with a large ERG base, for example, in Parma, we said, you know, instead of having one event per year for each ERG, let's have one together. And, you know, and it's not a competition of events. You can have as many meetings you want within your ERG, but open to the whole public, do an intersectionality event, and all design it together. So I think they're trying to make sure that the ERGs leaders can, you know, be combined in certain ways.
Indeed. Any other comments, Christine or Annette, Doris?
Well, that's the best practice that we've observed in our London office. We've got several ERGs active there, and yeah, Kristen, you mentioned intersectionality, and that's something that we're bringing to these to the ERGs in London, asking them to cooperate with each other on a specific topic, and because you know, that's also inclusion. You know, the one topic will affect all different groups, perhaps in different ways, and by talking about that, you know, we all learn and benefit from that. Luca, you mentioned competition. You know, I think perhaps you were talking about it within the ERG itself, and that's another thing that we've learned is that you know, giving these groups a bit of structure at the beginning helps. A term of reference, yeah, rotating responsibilities on a regular basis, and setting that out at the beginning, that puts everyone on the same level. Everyone knows what the rules of engagement are, and it can make things a little bit more relaxed in the organization of the group itself.
You know, well, thank you. I mean, I think this is, we're going to see more and more of this intersectionality as we go forward. And in fact, the last question I have for you, and I'd like us to try to answer, most of us to try to answer this question, those of us who want to, and then we close after this. And by the way, thank you to everyone who asked questions and responded to questions in the meeting chat. Very interesting, and I hope the recording captures the meeting chat, because it's been full of good content. But the question is this: how do you see the ideal ERG, or how do you see the ERG evolving by 2025? So if you imagine the ERG of 2025, what characteristics would it have, and how does it contribute to the organization, where the broader organization where it's standing? Anybody would like to start, and then we'll try to be very brief. I'd love to have as many impressions as you can.
Yeah,
maybe I can.
If I can,
Christy first, and then Vera, and then go for it.
So you know, Hogan Lovells, we're a law firm. We're a bunch of lawyers, and we're used to giving people advice. And I think that's one way that the ERG can move into the future is to see itself as a source of advice, you know, to management and to other groups within the organization. You know, after existing for a certain time, they're going to have a certain basis of, you know, a fountain of knowledge or wisdom or experience that they can pass on, and hopefully that an exchange would develop where management would also actively consult, you know, the ERG on a certain question. So that's where I hope it's going.
Thank you. Vera.
Okay, from my side, for future ERGs, I would like to see innovation, first of all, some innovative ideas, and also cooperation, which is very important. Being cooperative to each other, to the company, to the people in the organization. So two things, innovation and cooperation.
And Natalia?
Well, I'm biased a bit by the nature of my job, but where I would like ERGs to really make a contribution is on the topic of inclusive products and services and customer experience. We try to build a bridge now, also with Doris, but I think there is much more that we can do when we speak about inclusive experiences and really developing products that respond to LGBTQI customer needs.
Thank you. Doris.
Yeah, two things. Well, one is the one that Natalia mentioned. So it's, let's say, switching from, being inclusive to more going inclusive. So it's also having more perspectives than just the internal one. So going out there also. In our case, for instance, I'm thinking about our agents, who are the front lines to our customers. That's also another topic that has to be taken into the discussion as we evolve as ERGs. And then the second thing is what Kirsten and also Christine mentioned. I think that one day, I personally think that they will replace the external consultants. They will really become the internal advisors to our leadership, and they will be even more credible as they are bringing, and then as they are, growing inside the internal context, environment, culture of the organization. So both things.
Excellent. You have a hand raised, and then Mara. And if you want to intervene, maybe raise your hand so we can. But Annette.
Well, I don't want to repeat everything was already mentioned. I do think that advisory and consultancy is the most important thing what we have in the future or will have in the future. So I just have to thank all the people that mentioned this. Thank you.
Mara, your point. Thank you, Annette. Mara.
Well, taking here and there some point that has been mentioned, I'm also passionate for the innovation aspect, and I will see very much this team entering in the normal way of working as agile teams that are able really with the creativity of these multiple groups stimulating acceleration in multiple aspects, including consulting leadership, but really also in the direction of possibly of the customer solutions, the problem solving within the organization and so on. So I would like, and I think that is even not so far as we talk a lot about agile teams and so on, to have maybe this ERG becoming more as a part of the normal working culture within the organization.
Kristen, the last comment is yours.
Oh, that sends a lot of pressure. Okay, no, I agree with everything that everyone said. I just add another perspective on top. It's not necessarily about the evolution, but about measuring the successful culture change of it that ERGs are driving. I mean, there is ways to measure. I mean, like via employee surveys, and really, that's something we've seen. The ERG is actually in all countries raised what the employees say is the acceptance of differences. So I think ERGs have a huge business role, and it can be measured, and then it can actually be something you put a KPI in and then actually measured in country by. So just like we do for any business result. So I think that's like my summary is that the ERGs are part of business. They drive business, whether it's innovation, culture change. We know culture change, openness drives innovation. So all of these go together, and we should think about KPIs to actually measure it and recognize it.
Indeed. And I think in summary, what I've heard and what we've heard is many, many things about what ERGs are. They start from, you can take even a fairly emotional based and belonging based view of the ERG, which is what Tiziano mentioned at the beginning. Very, very important and crucial. And it will sustain the reason of being of an ERG. But the ERG, as we just said, is much more than that. It can be innovation. It can be a way to listen to people. It can be a way for organizations to go through crisis by hearing what people are going through from different perspectives. They can also be, if you want, the ultimate way for an executive to change, to learn, to grow, and to authentically go through change. You start with fake it until you make it, but then you go to become authentic as you go through. And for me, I can tell you my own experience has been exactly that. The ERGs at Procter & Gamble, where I used to work, were so crucial to me personally as a journey towards the understanding of the other, coming from a position in which I never had having the privilege of the situation I was in. I was never in need to understand what the other was about. But the ERG really gives you the opportunity for that if one has the courage, and that's where HR comes into the picture, to coach the executive into getting the courage to open up and do so. So the ERG can be many things. I'm excited to see where the future will bring us. I wanted to thank the panelists because they've done a superb job today. So all of you have been outstanding. Thank you to Diversity for hosting us. And also to our audience. This has been an hour and a half. That's quite a lot of time. It's a full feature film. Usually you need a director, you need great actors, etc., to get people's attention for so long. And thank you for those of us who were here for part of the whole time or the whole time with us. I hope to see you all again soon. Maybe we'll meet in another year or two and make the point about what ERGs are in our organizations and outside. Again, thank you and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.